No,
Nope.
I do
Oh
hear
no.
like a, I don't know if it's like a fan or some kind of background.
I do. I hear it too. I think it's Mark.
Yeah,
Do you
maybe
have
it's
ambient
the
noise?
air. Hold on, let me.
But it's weird we lost Laura.
Yeah.
There it goes.
Tech issues are fun.
I know. Is your mic? Did your mic get disconnected?
Yeah.
Oh,
How is
Nope.
that now?
we can hear
There
you
it
Yeah,
now.
You're
is.
there
back.
we
Is that
go.
back? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something in my system settings went wonky. I don't know why that happened, but anyway, we're back now. I was about to go into the chat, into the studio chat, and been like, please talk because we're live.
Yep.
Oh,
Oh,
Don't sit in
dead air.
silence.
Yeah.
we swear we've done this
Um,
before.
yeah, no,
Just
Mm-hmm.
for a
we
few years.
definitely have for sure. We're professionals, right? Right. Well, anyway, if you are just joining us live on YouTube, we are What the Hype podcast, and we are here doing an instant reaction to The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 7, finale episode of the second season. We've been doing these every week all season long, and we're now on the final episode and we're all here to react together. So, here on the panel, we have Eric and Chelsea, who have joined me for the vast majority of these episodes. And we also have Mark and Micah joining us as contributors. We've had them on these a couple of times as well. And what's really great is we have a mixture of perspectives here. So, a few of us are game players, and one of us, Micah, not sorry to single you out,
It's all right.
you're not a game player, at least not for The Last of Us Part 2. You have played Part 1 and you've seen Season 1, but you'll have that unique perspective of someone going into this story without kind of knowing exactly what to expect. So that's always really welcome here. And we've definitely
I've
enjoyed
got
talking to you
questions.
and Pam. You've
Ooh.
got, hey, so Micah, I will say I got questions too. So you're not alone. Um,
Who's got answers?
Uh, Chelsea and I will get it. Let us know
okay,
your
cool.
questions. We'll
Eric
field
and
it.
Chelsea here for the answers.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's go ahead and get started into this. And I think someone noted the episode title, and I know that Chelsea, you've been super on top of these for us because HBO doesn't seem to want to share these super far in advance, but this week's title was Convergence. And I think we saw that as a theme throughout this episode. Maybe that's a good place for us to start. Like, how does convergence factor into this episode? Um, and what does it mean for these various factions to be kind of all crashing into each other at the same time in the same place?
We had the question going through this season, what would it all amount to, or what would they choose to make the finale? As there is obviously quite a lot more story to tell. There's a lot more story in The Last of Us Part 2 video game. And so we were asking this question on the show, like what will happen to make things come to like a either a cliffhanger or any kind of like big come to a head. And it sounds like and looks like, now that we've seen the episode, it was all focused on this convergence of characters. So there were several that it had been many episodes since we've seen. Tommy's one of them, right? These characters that are in the wilderness, they're out there, specifically in Seattle over the last several days. They're doing things. Whenever we catch up with them, we hear, "You've been look at that, you've been over there," but we haven't seen them. It's been a little jarring, maybe intentionally, surely, but the convergence is like, okay, let's reset, let's remind everyone of the chess pieces that are still around and reset the pieces a little bit and kind of catch up that way. So it seems like their intention in kind of bringing these characters together was to maybe go so far to like even change what the show means, because the characters we have been following every episode did get a kind of evolutionary path, or their stories came to not a conclusion but a stopping point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we can dive right into analyzing the way all these characters converge on each other by just looking at scene 1, where we're opening up with Jesse trying to save Dina. So we really pick up with what happens with Jesse and Dina after Dina is shot with an arrow by, well, a rogue arrow shot by a Seraphite. And Jesse has to do some pretty quick split-second emergency surgery on her. And I do have to say, this moment, and then like throughout the episode, I genuinely did find myself at several points thinking, is this new or did this happen in the game? I don't, like, I'm having a hard time placing it. So me and Mark both were like, we need to replay the game.
Yeah.
But it was definitely, I think, a good scene for establishing Dina's pregnancy with Jesse.
Can I say though,
Yeah.
I mean, because of the prior episode, I forgot that she had been shot.
Right.
And so I was like, oh my God, is she having the baby already?
Surprise, it's a time jump 9 months later. Seattle, day 183. What?
So
But yeah, no, that's a good call out. I think the interesting thing here about like furthering Dina's character is her decision not to tell him. Jesse figures it out. He's fairly smart. But even in that moment when she's, crossbolt in the leg, she's refusing alcohol, and he's like, "What?" She's never turned down a drink. It's not clear to him. So there's a line, because we see a lot of characters come to a head this episode where they have, this is kind of the come to Jesus moment, where it's like, okay, I'm going to tell you either everything or I'm going to keep things from you, and how our entire lives keep going on from here is based on whether I'm honest or not. Dina chooses not to be honest with Jesse, even as he's saving her life. And that's an interesting kind of character point that, as we explore Jesse's character properly in this episode, I think that will continue to be interesting to me, is that Dina, really was not upfront with him.
I wonder if Ellie hadn't made it back by the time that Dina woke up, that Dina might have had that conversation with Jesse, because I mean, I kind of understand in the heat of the moment with an arrow in your leg, not wanting to have this like really intense personal discussion, like our dating history and like what that means for 9 months in the future, for however long in the future from now.
Yeah.
But then by the time Dina does wake up, Ellie's back, and there's not really a good moment for Dina and Jesse to have that moment of connecting and having that intimate conversation about, yeah, you're going to be a dad. So I'm just curious if that would have been different had Ellie not shown up when she did.
Could have been.
Yeah, I also think that she probably didn't, because, like, having the acknowledgement that it's like, yeah, you are pregnant, I'm pretty sure that would give Tommy and Jesse a pretty good reason to be like, you need to go home now. Like, we need, like, this is, I mean, they were already kind of being like, this is over, time to go home. But I feel like maybe since, like, Dina didn't know what was going on with Ellie yet, right? Like, she didn't know where Ellie was. Like, maybe she's like, let me just play this one a little bit close, so this doesn't turn into, like, if Ellie needs backup or help, they're not going to prioritize Dina and her, pregnancy over Ellie. Like, I can kind of see her, making that call in the heat of the moment, like, oh, let me just not say anything so we can keep the mission going. Because, like, she's pretty gung-ho with the mission until Ellie talks to her about
Right.
everything,
That's a good point. I suppose I saw Dina maybe being like, Jesse, there's a lot riding on you pulling this arrow out of my leg successfully because I'm pregnant. Something a little bit more like, not wonderful, but like economical. The way that we see another pregnant woman in this episode really get down to business as she's deeply injured and being like, "This is what we're gonna do." So,
Right.
That was
but
definitely a shocker.
you know,
Yeah.
that's a pretty big plot point. I'd say overall, and it's covered in the making of pretty successfully. That this is one of those moments of like opportunities for self-reflection for Ellie. This is an accidental death that has occurred in this episode. You know, she killed people she meant to kill, and she killed somebody that she did not mean to kill. So, where she goes from now, if she survives the gunshot, cut to black Sopranos moment, you know, will determine kind of how
Which
her
should have ended the
future.
episode, by the way, but we can talk about that.
You know, that's an interesting perspective for you to have. I completely agree with it, but I'm interested. Are you not titillated by the last
No,
scene?
absolutely not.
That
I mean, was this
that's
Isaac's compound? I mean,
It's a stadium. You've probably seen it on
it's a
TV.
football stadium,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Home
it
of
had
the
it,
Seattle Seahawks, it looked like.
yeah,
Mike
it
is a
had
tough
like
sell.
it had like Marvel after credit scene energy, and it's like a football stadium, ooh, and it's like, all right, like cool, like we know what this means, and I do like that set piece, but I have to agree with Micah having that like soprano style cut be like boom episode over versus boom and now look at this football field. By the way, we're going back to day one. It's like, oh, okay. And then cut. And I'm like having a smash cut, then having a very long, like her walking down that little hallway and we're looking out over everything. And it's like, okay, cool. And then it's like day one. It's like, oh, we're, so there's gonna be a season like if you didn't know right if you weren't in the know and you're like okay
Uh,
so there's gonna be a season 3 and it's gonna I guess follow Abby throughout this 1 2 3 day period like which is cool but like I don't know.
Yeah, and to that point, and I mean, I definitely want to hear multiple perspectives here, but M, who's watching us live on YouTube, says, "Hi, I'm just going to say it. I don't want to follow Abby next season. I've never played the game, by the way. The actress is great, but I don't really care about the character." And this brings me back to a concern that I had expressed a couple of weeks ago, which is that I don't think we spent enough time with Abby this season.
No.
So
And
obviously, I care about following Abby because I know the story. But for someone who doesn't know the story, I'm afraid they're going to be less invested.
this is a fumble.
yeah, it's unfortunate because and Eric, I know you and I have talked about this throughout the season in that Abby just doesn't seem like she was built up as much as she needed to be, especially to walk in having no idea who she is in episode 1 to do what she does in episode 2. I will say I liked kind of the book ending of this season with her because she was a focal point of episode 1. She's a focal point of this episode, although she's not in it all that much. Yeah. I mean, she seems like she just shows up to kill people. That's pretty much it.
Yep.
And that's
Well, and she's so much more, but you would never know that,
Yep.
right? It's like
And
this
that's
is the risk that they took. Yeah, go on, Mike.
yeah, like the last time we talked about this when I was on, like I like this is what I was afraid of, where it's like I don't want Abby to just be the Grim Reaper because she is so much more than that. See, she's so much more of a dynamic character, and to have her just be like, "Yo, Deuces, what's up, Joel?" Bam, Joel in one, and then it's like, "All right, Deuces, I'll see you later." Then the last episode, like, "Remember me? Back again, pow pow pow," and it's like, "All right, like." I get that like they're trying to explain or trying to show like this world is unpredictable and very dangerous and people can just roll up on you out of nowhere and kill you, right? Like I liked kind of that we didn't know who Abby was in the beginning and she was just like, "Yo, what's up? Joel, you're dead. I hate you." And like Joel has a lot of enemies that kind of checks out. But the difference is in the game, they give you that backstory through, like, from that moment to where we are now, you're slowly learning who Abby is. So when she does show up, in the theater, you're like, oh shit, like it's built up. It's not just like she killed Joel, then she left, and we don't know where she was for however many episodes, and then she came back. And I get that they're saving that for season 3, but it just feels like, want to know what Abby was doing? Well, tune in Last of Us season 3, and it's like, all right, like, cool. Like, I just want, like, having her be such a impactful character in the story, and literally us only seeing her in the beginning of the season and now, like, I know that I don't want a copy and paste of the game in the story in the game, right? Like, I appreciate when they change things because I think it adds a lot of things. But I feel like with this season, I almost would kind of appreciate it more if it was more disorganized, right? Like, it was more like this happens, then this happens. Because, like, most people have proved, like, not most people, but with these kind of shows, we've kind of proven that we can follow stories that jump back and forth, right? Like, that's not a very new concept in storytelling, So
But
it doesn't.
it would have been an even more chronological storytelling to stick to give us more Abby sooner, because she's been doing stuff
Yeah.
for 2 or 3 days. Yeah, Ellie doesn't know what she's been up to. She's been doing some really interesting stuff. It's a gamble that the show took not to show any of that. But the first time we even hear one of her friends ask where she is Isaac in this episode. That's way too late for one of her friends. Like, she's AWOL? That's a big deal. We should have seen them freaking out about it 2 days ago.
Yep.
To potentially create like this enigma of where she is. Now she shows up, she's absolutely lethal, which is great. But I do worry that it maybe it's not quite balanced. Chelsea, I want to get your thoughts on this specifically. What can you say to bring us back home to what it is that we've gotten from Abby this season?
Well, what I will say is that something that I appreciated is that this season was Ellie's story, and we got a complete, more or less, emotional arc from where she started to where she finished. And like she's at the, oh no, it's the consequences of my actions point of the story. Like, she realizes that she effed up, she made some really bad decisions, and things are biting her in the butt here at the end of the season. I like that this was that story. But I also understand that asking people to come back for season 3 and it being billed as Abby's story when we've just had 2 seasons of Ellie and Joel's story, that's a big ask for people who don't have the video game background. And the people with the video game background is a very small portion of the viewing audience of this show. Like,
Yep.
this show expanded the Last of Us audience in a huge way to way outside of the video game sphere. And so I think they had another couple of options that might have been interesting. Number one, make the season longer than 7 episodes. And then you could have followed
this
the
is
same
2 episodes
format.
shorter. Yep.
Make it follow the same format, and you could even do what they already seem to be planning to do, and like have the first 7 episodes be exactly what they were, and then let's have next week is episode 8 and we get Abby's story, and then we're not asking people to come back 2 years later to get this character's story. They're just getting it as they're used to tuning in on Sunday nights, right? Or they could have kept it a more truncated season and done more of the flip-flopping, but I think the issue there is that you would have gotten 2 stories that would have been less complete than what we got for Ellie in this season. So like, there were a lot of options to
I
weigh,
agree with
and
that.
I don't know if they chose the best one, but I do think they're asking a lot of their television viewing audience to come back for season 3
Yeah.
just for Abby.
And yeah, and Game of Thrones exists, right? So that's like one of the most. There's so many characters in that. It's like people can handle multiple stories, right? And I feel like they were afraid to be like, we just want, and like, Ellie's a big sell, right? So it makes sense to be like, we want this to focus on Ellie, and they could have still made it focus on Ellie, but it would have at least like 70% Ellie, then 30% Abby, right? Just so she's still around. Like, it doesn't have
Yes.
to be solely a 50-50 split. Like, just show us her. Because, like, I guarantee people were like, "Who's this? Who's this person? Oh yeah, she's the person that killed
Yeah.
Joel. I forgot about this person." Like,
It's not that we got her and we didn't like her. We didn't
Yeah.
get her. So
No.
it's like, okay.
Yeah.
We didn't get a
And there's
chance
lot
to like her.
yeah,
Yeah.
But
And-
also, like,
Oh,
I
go
just want to take a moment right now to give Caitlin Deaver her flowers for the brief moment we got to see her. She perfectly captures Abby's character. She is commanding. She's intimidating. She's scary. So even though she's not as physically imposing as Abby is in the game, I really do think that Caitlin captures her character very effectively. It's just unfortunate because what's that supposed to mean to people who don't know anything about her character, you know?
yep.
And what is being promised in terms, like, to us in terms of what season 3 will hold, right? I think the very jarring kind of throwback flashback episode, the whole flashback scene at the end of this episode, which now I'm actually quite agreeing it should have not included that at all. Leave it on like a proper cliffhanger and then be like, oh snap, you know.
Because season 1 did not have a cliffhanger.
Nope. It was a complete story.
Yeah.
So
And I think when people compare season 1 and season 2 or Last of Us Part 2 and the show adaptation of that, it's going to be really hard and it's not really fair because the first game was made as a very linear, contained story where when it was done, it was like you didn't know if you were going to get any more. Like it ends on a good enough note that you could be like, the story could end here and that could be that. But Last of Us 2 is a lot more of a complex story with a lot of jumping around, with a lot of going back and forth. And I get that that's more intimidating to tackle, but like the last episode with the flashback episode probably was still my favorite episode. But I still think I would have liked to get that episode broken up and scattered throughout the season at the end of every episode and throw in some Abby flashbacks too, so we're just like, oh yeah, oh Abby's going to the aquarium, got it, or just something
Closer to how it is in the game.
yeah, and it doesn't have to be one for one, but I feel like for me, I'm just like that kind of storytelling worked, and you don't have to do it exactly like it is, but telling this story that was designed this way and being like, okay, this whole season is Ellie, this whole season is Abby, it's gonna be very strange because they almost trick you into caring more about Abby as the story progresses because you're seeing her. Like you're seeing Ellie do something, you're seeing Abby do something, and a lot of times they're showing Abby just doing whatever, and I won't get into it because I don't want to, spoil anything, but like you see Abby doing whatever, then you see Ellie doing horrible things. Like horrible things, so it makes you think like, is Abby that bad? Because Ellie's out here doing some crazy stuff, so it makes you like reevaluate that.
Right.
But if we didn't get that, and it's just like, here's Ellie just crashing out hard. And then it's like, cool. All right, remember Abby, she still exists. Next week or next season's her story. And you're like, wait, what? Oh, okay. Like, we don't have that moral check that we got in the game by being like, okay, you hate Abby, but look at what Ellie did. Isn't this kind of bad? Does this make you feel kind of icky? Okay, here's Abby doing something pretty normal. Okay, here's Ellie doing something bad again. So like having that like dichotomy is kind of what made you slowly be like, okay, I want to see more of this Abby character, right? I want to see more of what she's doing. I want to see more of the world she's a part of, because like I don't know really why you would care at this point about her world,
Yeah.
like
The other thing I wanted to say about the final scene is that the one episode where it ended with the wolves on the streets, and you're like, oh crap, the wolves are really organized. There's a lot of them. This scene served that same purpose as Abby going out and looking over the stadium and be like, they took over a whole stadium. It's the same like gotcha zing moment of like, there's a lot of wolves. We already know that. So like
So-
if
The Wolves are fans of football. Oh my God.
well, I'm certainly a fan of football infrastructure. That sounds like a great place to build a refuge.
Honestly, that Costco, I was like, ooh, a Costco,
Yeah.
good job.
Yeah,
Good
I
job.
like that.
They secured the
That's smart.
Costco.
Right. That's why they win. That's why they're around. They got the Costco.
Yeah.
When the
So-
zombie apocalypse comes, we're going to Costco. That's
We're going to
the
Costco.
plan. Yeah.
I'll preface this by saying that I enjoyed the season. I enjoy the show. My challenge in being sort of the casual viewer is that I'm not sure where the show is going. And I'm not saying that because there's an excitement about, like, I'm literally asking, like, I don't know where the show is going. And, there was no infected in this finale at all. There was no mention of the cordyceps at all. Like, is that just now becoming a side story to this human to human conflict that really exists in most other shows? So it's like, what's the draw? What's going to pull me into
What
season
makes
3?
this show different? That's interesting.
Yeah, and I mean overall, like, this season was very infected light if you take out episode 2. But that was such a huge component of season 1, right? Because it was all about Ellie having the cure and getting her to where she needed to be. And so is that part of this anymore? Or, that's what
It
I'm
is.
struggling with here.
Well, it's a good question. It's good to ask that question and kind of ruminate on it.
Yeah, and
I think
and
ultimately it is about the people, but yeah.
Yes, and I agree. Like that Last of Us, like even the first season, like the infected were there, but like it wasn't really about them. It is a human story, but I do agree, especially with how beautifully this team shows that off. Like seeing the clickers run at people, seeing the stalkers, like the cinematography they use to make them look so creepy. Like that one guy that was like crawling like backwards off of that little raptor when Ellie's shone her light up, and then like they just played that scene in reverse to make him like unnaturally mantle down, and I was like, this is all perfect, right? Like even in the basement where you had all the cordyceps, like all the fungus everywhere, like that looked great.
Yeah, that was-
it looked awesome. But I was like, but nothing really happened. Like there was no
Right,
like
is the airborne threat a threat? Like, or is it just hanging out in the basement?
and also I'm like,
now.
wait. Right, I'm like, so you were just like, there's a lot about this like last like mad dash to the finale where I was like, wait, so you were in a basement in a WLF hospital that is guarded. They know you were down there with one of their like main people, right? Like people saw you going down there. She was running through the halls screaming, "I'm going to kill you, Nora." So like there was no stealth. And then she goes down there, but then she just shows back up at the theater. I was like, can we see that? Can we see you maybe sneak out? Can we
Well-
see you like go into a sewer or something? Like
She gets real close to Dina too, so I was like, "Hey, would you want
Yeah!
to like take your
thinking
like?
you
What
were
if there's some
meant to.
spores under your jacket?
Right.
Like,
and,
like
and I understand that this is why they stayed away from that in the first season, the whole airborne thing, because in the game it was all over the place. Like every time you went into a basement, there were spores, and I feel like in the show they were like, okay, this is going to be a lot to deal with. That every single time there is a spore, and like they change fast. It's not like you're like, oh, I kind of have a cough for a few days and I can kind of like, beat it. Like no, you're turning pretty much. So I see why they kind of stayed away from that, and I even kind of understand the whole like the hospital is kind of ground zero, like that's where they took the bodies from the initial infection and blah 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 blah, and like that's cool. But it didn't, like Mike said, it didn't go anywhere. Like it didn't, like it was like, hey, cool thing, but it never really paid off.
Well,
Like
I think, and I think we've all talked about this, and I won't, for Micah's sake, I won't get into spoilers, but I think them establishing that hospital as like ground zero for some of the first infected, and we see the state that basement level is in. I think there is something that we all thought we were going to see this season that did not crop up yet that I
Pour
think
one
we're going
out.
to see, and that's going to be the environment that justifies why that
You
exists.
you mean the scene that I am the most excited about this entire, like, I've been waiting for. I
Oh, every
We
episode-
disagree on that. I don't want to
every
see
time
it.
We're
I
all
want to
like,
see it
it's
so
gonna be
Make it
bad.
the
next
video
week.
game.
Every time I'm
video
like,
game.
this is it. This is it. This is it. My
There's no way the show
Oh.
survives showing that. There's no way.
I want it.
It's
I
just
want to
not-
see it.
It's not
I
a
want to.
thing. Mike's freaking
I
out.
can't-
But yeah,
I can't
no.
wait.
Here's the interesting thing though, and we're planning on doing, by the way, listeners, we're planning on doing a season overview episode later in the week, at some point. So I'll try and kind of leave most of my like season overview stuff there. But if you look at the scenes we got this episode with the WLF and Seraphite conflict, and Ellie herself getting captured by the Seraphites briefly.
Which why? I mean, why?
Well,
I mean,
so-
what was the point? Can you explain to me, please?
They've established these other Seattle people, but
I'm
there's
aware.
all the time. If you look at, hang on, let me finish.
I'm
If
sorry.
they had just
Go ahead.
taken all of the scenes that they gave to the WLF and Seraphite and setting up the Seraphite threat, which is really an Abby situation, but actually shown Abby instead, like if you just take the same amount of screen time that's devoted to the Seraphites and give us Abby, maybe there would have been a different kind of reaction to the Abby appearance in this episode than what we're talking about now. It's kind of my theory.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
the-
so too, because for that exact reason, Eric, because the Seraphites are more of an Abby thing. I was
Because
also
like apart from Ellie getting to Seattle and realizing she's in over her head, which Dina and she realized in like episode 3, you don't need to show more Seraphite stuff. I love the Seraphite stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they're
I
like a
get
bunch
it.
of wackadoos that live in the forest. It's
And,
But maybe
and
they're
granted,
the only sane ones out
or
there.
maybe they
and,
are.
and granted, there is a lot more to that story that is very cool, right? But the problem is because they're trying to like make this story fit into this outline that they have to do things like, hey, remember the Seraphites? Remember they're still around, and it's like you don't need those like forced reminders of things in the like flip-flop method, right? Because you're just naturally getting that. And like you said about the whole her getting captured thing, if I would have like left to get popcorn when she got on that boat
Oh.
and then came back after she goes back in the water and she's supposed to the aquarium, I wouldn't have really missed anything. I would have been like, oh, she got there, cool. Like,
The only reason why I thought that scene was there was it reminded me of earlier in the episode when she's talking with Jesse and she really wants to go and save the Seraphite kid. But then in this particular moment, it's a Seraphite kid who betrays her. And so that's the only kind of storytelling piece that I could possibly make a connection to, because aside from that, there's really no reason for her to get washed ashore to get back in the boat to go to the aquarium unless I'm totally missing something.
No, I mean that was
Yeah.
definitely what the intention was, and they talked about that in the making of, right? Where
Okay.
there's this whole idea of community itself being the problem, because it turns everything into an us versus them if you only prioritize your community, and that was Ellie's issue with Jesse's interpretation of the word community is I've got to protect Jackson and I've got to dedicate myself to Jackson because they took care of me, and Ellie's like, well, Joel was my community, and so what do you think I'm trying to do is take care of and like look after that.
Yeah.
And so I that was the whole point of that scene.
Yeah.
And they did point out it didn't exist in the game. It was just a complete fabrication, and it does serve a reminder that the Seraphites are out there, but really it's just drawing the parallel that they've been doing over and over and over again across both seasons, is that people do terrible things for the people or the community or the concepts that they love to other people they view as outside of that.
Yeah, again, this story is all about perspective. Again and again, we keep coming back to that. It's like no one's really right, Not really. It's just
Yeah.
about who wins and who loses.
And the beauty of the game in like when you're first playing it, right, and you're getting to play as Abby, like the fact that they can take a character that comes in and kills like one of the main characters of the game series and then makes you care, right,
Yeah,
about
you
their
have every reason to
story.
hate her. Yeah.
You have every reason to be like, I do not care for this person at all. And they, because of how masterfully they tell that story and show you, you know, glimpses into her world and like her motivations and all these things, you find yourself being like, you ice Joel, that was pretty messed up, but I kind of want to see how your story plays out still, right? Like it's not like you're just like whatever, get out of here. Like they do such a good job of that, and like the scene with, I feel like I like that Ellie is being reckless, you know, because it shows that like she's not really thinking things through, right? Even her argument with Jesse, where it's like, we just watched somebody die. And it's like, Ellie, I know you ain't talking. You've killed so many people. All of those people did not deserve to die. There's some guy out there that was just doing regular old guard duty, and he has a wife and kids at home, and you just killed
Or
him
Joe
just because.
Miller.
Yeah. So it's like you're in a war. Like you, sure, if this was like everything was hunky dory, sure, you could maybe have that take, but like you were in a war, you've killed plenty of people who were just in your way, right? Either just surviving, right? And it's like, so all those people you killed, Ellie, what do you think their daughter's gonna do? Or their wife or husband or whatever? Like, that is the whole cycle of violence that they really highlight in the story is like, if you are meeting violence with violence, it is not going to end, right? Like, and you're going to be as justified as you want because it hurt you, but you are hurting other people, and they're going to come after you the same way that you know, that they
I think there are elements. There are elements where that point is driven home and succeeds this season, and even in tonight's episode. I mean, I think the scene with Mel and Owen plays out exactly in the right way. And the added in the making of, they revealed that Craig had the idea of having Mel kind of tell Abby or tell Ellie to, you know, try and save the baby, and Ellie actually like is along for the ride until she realizes she's so out of her depth, which is brutal and awesome. I think that maybe there was a point in this, like this whole season, but also tonight's episode, where they just want to make you sit with Ellie's failure. How consistently not planning she is, how consistently out of her depth she is, and like realize she's not a hero. And so my big question was, maybe the approach that they took, which is only clear in this episode to me, is like, maybe this is a thing, is in order to feel comfortable exploring Abby more, maybe the show really had to take Ellie down a peg as a hero character. You really had to see, not in a small way, not only that she's not heroic, but to continuously see how she ain't shit when it comes to avoiding infected. She ain't shit when it comes to not shooting, like shooting the right people, shooting only who she wants to shoot. Maybe it really did need to essentially show us all the ugliness of Ellie in order for the writers to then feel comfortable to fully either leave Ellie behind. Not that Ellie ever gets left behind. She never gets left behind. But that to focus on Abby, maybe they really needed to show us how much Ellie is so flawed to kind of, we push her aside
But-
then and feel okay about it.
I do like that, and something that I did like about this episode, and again, this was another one of those things that I was like, is this a showism, or did this also happen in the game? When Ellie literally is having to choose between Joel and Tommy at a time when Joel is dead, right? So she literally gets to choose between, I'm gonna go try and fuck up Abby, or I'm gonna go help Tommy, who is actively alive and needs help.
I'm pretty sure that
And
happens in the game.
and we see the choice she makes. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
again, I think it really does drive home the point that like Ellie's not a hero. She's not perfect, and she's not the only victim. There are a
And
lot
Jesse's
of,
the hero. He keeps showing up for her.
and
Well,
and
was.
like It's
Well,
funny because they even like I love that he was like, yeah, if I didn't show up here, if I did go with that girl and I didn't show, what would have happened? And Ellie doesn't really say anything, and I'm like I I appreciate showing a character that is going through like a burnout, right? Or a crash out cuz we've all been there, right? We may not have crashed out as spectacularly as she has, but we've all been there. We've all had something where we're like, I didn't handle that the best, right? But I feel like getting a whole season of her just consistently making bad decisions, consistently like not showing how I don't know, like competent she is in that way, you know, and I've in like in the game, and this is just a difference in the game that you can't really do much about is when Ellie's doing cool shit in the game, you are the one doing the cool shit, right? Like if you
Yeah.
infiltrate a whole base of WLF people, you are the one making the decisions of hiding behind this barrel, taking this person out, shanking this right? Like
You feel pride after you do
yeah,
it.
like
Yeah.
you are the one that's like, wow, I did that. That was pretty difficult. Or wow, like I guess Ellie and by proxy me, the player, are pretty good at this because we have been doing this for like 1.5 games at this point. You know what I mean? But they just kind of skipped that with her. Like I would have loved to see her like actually get in the hospital because she just kind of like Batman appears and she's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "Where did you come from?" Like, you got into a heavily guarded hospital in the middle of an active war zone.
That is an interesting call out though, that there are moments where there's a, even though we're, this is like, okay, this is Ellie focused Seattle days 1 through 3, Ellie focused Seattle, there's still parts where we miss where that could be used to make it feel less, I don't even say choppy, because again, this is the close up on Ellie, but it's like there's still these moments where maybe had we gotten 10 more minutes of Ellie trying to get in the hospital, we either would have more sympathy for her or more feelings
Yeah,
or time with her.
or
Like it's still just like, why are there two fewer episodes this season? Which is
yeah,
a season question, but like, you know,
yeah, and also just like just to like kind of show, I don't know, like that Ellie is a threat. You know, like I don't want to see Ellie consistently being saved all the time. And sure, that happens, but there are plenty of other scenes and situations that show how competent she is and shows how much of a force she is. So when she does need to be saved, you're like, "Oh damn, I guess there just really wasn't any option, huh? I guess this is just so overwhelming that even though with all of your tricks and your strategies and your, survival training pretty much you couldn't overcome this, so it took you kind of just getting lucky cuz she gets lucky a lot. Like on that boat, I'm like, that should have been it. You got capsized in a storm, in a huge, basically like a hurricane. Like,
well, it's okay because Joel taught her to swim. We
Yeah,
don't
but
Yeah, we're
really
good.
see that
your
happening, but
boat was still
in a
operational.
convergence of water.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
then let's not forget she's about to get gutted, and she just so happens to be literally saved by the horn, not Bell, but saved by the horn. And it's like, so not only do you get lucky by surviving your boat getting capsized, you wash up on shore, immediately get captured, almost get gutted, then they rush off, then you just run away and go back to doing what you're doing. And it's like, cool. Like I don't need my main character to be John Wick, right? I don't need them to be a force of nature, but like I just feel like it's kind of selling Ellie short because she does do a lot of cool shit. Like she is not just like a like Leroy Jenkins in every interaction she has where she just runs in. Like she is kind of sneaky. Like even in certain situations where you're fighting certain people, they really play up how sneaky Ellie is, which is kind of the reason why the stalkers like threw her off so much because that's her thing. Like she's like, hey, get your own thing. I'm the
they
sneaky
stole
one.
my act.
Yeah, I'm the sneaky one. Like, so yeah, it just I wish we could have got more. Like if I could have if they were like, hey, if you could make this episode whatever you wanted, I would have been like, could we please just get like 2 more episodes and stretch this season out and just show us more Abby, please, and give us one cool scene with Ellie that actually shows that like yes, she kind of is hot shit in some situations. She's not just kind of stumbling through this.
This
So
is
when she's doing these things, it's deliberate. Like, you're like, oh, you made this decision. You didn't just accidentally trip and knock over a barrel and somebody blew up and died, you know?
Yeah. Well, this is concerning now because the tone of this conversation where it's going is like, okay, so we talked about how Abby coming back in this episode may still feel like Abby got shortchanged this season overall. Ellie, now we're talking about Ellie. We feel that Ellie got shortchanged by not having a moment where she was just cool. So,
Well,
who
here's what
di-
I'll say.
yeah.
Ellie of the TV show is close to, but is not exactly Ellie of the video game. And we are not playing a video game, and so we don't need to show every single point A to point B to point C to point D. Like in a video game, you can't have her walk in the outside hospital door and then show up in front of the main boss. But in some cases in a TV show, that makes more sense because we're telling a story rather than telling gameplay.
Yeah, fair
And
enough.
so, like, I understand the want for Ellie to be a little bit more badass in her representation on screen, but we do get those moments when she has the advantage in those like one-on-one kind of situations. We see that she wins those fights more often than not one-on-one, but we also see that TV version of Ellie is maybe not as great as strategic planning as Dina is, and that's why Dina being there with her is a strength. But that's my ultimate point. It's not a video game, and
Yeah.
like we
I
have the
totally-
different mediums for different things.
Yeah, I totally understand, but I mean, showing Joel eviscerate everyone in a hospital, he could have rolled up, shot Abby's dad, shot a few more people, then dipped. But they showed him kill everyone. And even then, I'm like, one person took out an entire hospital full of people, pretty much. And I'm like, just show me Ellie sneak up and shiv one person. One.
Fair.
That's all I need. That's all, just to show me that she's like, it kind of feels like she's just stumbling through these course of events. And to a degree she is, but I don't like that depiction of her just stumbling through, because I kind of want us to sit with the fact that she sat down and was like, I am going to kill these people.
Right.
You know, like, I don't want it to just be like oh, would you look at that? What luck? Like, no, I want it to be like, you sat down and thought about, okay, how am I going to get into this hospital and kill all these random people if I need to get to Nora to kill her? You know, like, I want to see that, because to me, it gives it more weight, because it's not like you just being like, oh, I went in this door and thank goodness Nora's here. So she's the only person caught in this. Yeah, I don't know. Like, she's the only collateral damage, if it were, you know, because the show would kind of have you think that it's like, oh, it's just Nora and all of Abby's like immediate friends that got caught in this, and it's like, you know how many people you put down in the game that are just doing their job. And I feel like that is part of the narrative. Like, that's what happens when you are so blinded with like, I'm going to kill them. Like, I am going to get my revenge, and I will I will, like, even Jesse being like, if I was in trouble, you'd burn the world down to save me. Like, that's cool, but you're burning the world down. Right?
Yeah,
like,
well, and I think they were trying to go for Mel and Owen really representing that shock factor of like, look at all the horrible things Ellie does as well, and really like drive a stake in when it was like, surprise, Mel was pregnant. And, you know, next season, for people who stick around, they're presumably going to learn more about Mel and Owen's characters that is going to make that hit even harder when you realize what their story was before Ellie killed them, you know? So I understand where they were going. I think, though, some of this sentiment that I know I've definitely seen a lot of different perspectives online, but I think some of it does probably come down to the fact that they just didn't have as much airtime to cover a much larger story, to be honest with you. I mean, part
It's
two
the
is
biggest
just
question for me.
it's a bigger story.
yes.
Well, here's an interesting thing too, and I have generally shied away from too many direct video game to TV show comparisons because they are such different mediums and
Yeah.
doing different things. But in our downtime between the end of the episode and recording tonight, I thought I'm curious how this went in the game, and I looked up the cutscene or the scene in the game of Ellie killing Owen and Mel, and it draws to a larger theme and difference between Ellie the character in the show versus the game is in that in the game it was a very intentional, like she killed Owen and Mel maliciously.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of instigated by Owen. Owen rushed her and then she shot him in the conflict, and then Mel takes her knife and tries to stab Ellie and she turns around and shoves it in her neck. And so altogether much more gruesome and much more intentional violence there versus the Ellie that we're getting so far in the show does seem to try to be, at least in her own small way, reversing or mitigating the cycle of violence a little bit in making her intention being killing Abby only unless other people make them kill her or make her kill them. And so that's a really interesting change, and I wanted to get everybody's thoughts on what your opinions of Ellie, like, trying to avoid the violence rather than in the game it being very intentional throughout. And that even goes back to Mark's point about the stealth and like the many WLF and people that she ends up killing in the game versus what we don't get here.
Yeah, you know, I will say I don't take issue with characters not being the same version of a character we might know from the game. I mean, straight up this season, this isn't the Ellie from the game, it's not the Dina from the game, it's not the Abby from the game. Just
And there are
straight
plus
up.
sides.
And that's
Oh, yeah.
okay. That's totally fine because they have shown that they are able to enhance the story by making those changes. So I think it's great. And I love the idea of Ellie really trying to take the whole, I hope, you know, when your time comes, you'll do better than me. You know, line that we hear from Joel's father and then from Joel himself. And I like the idea that they are trying to show us her character development through that lens, whereas, you know, her character development looks a little bit different in the game. I don't take any issue with that. I still just don't know. I still just don't think we had enough time this season. I really think that's what it comes down to for me. Like, overall, I like the season. I am so invested in this franchise that I'm obviously going to be back for season 3. Like, twist my arm. Like, I will be back. But just, you know, in general, I think that affected my overall enjoyment. But anyway, that
Yeah,
was
with-
like a much longer answer to the question than I think Chelsea was looking for.
Oh, but I think there has to be certain elements of Ellie's character that's sympathetic to the viewer, whereas you don't necessarily need that in a video game,
Right.
right?
Really good
You
point.
can't have a psychopathic killer who all she does is go on a rampage throughout the course of the show. I mean, I just don't know that that would translate very well.
It would be too one note.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
But I will say overall, I do feel like this particular season leaves you with a lot of questions as a casual viewer. And I feel like there could have been more done throughout the course of this season. To your point, Laura, maybe it would have been better with a few more episodes for us to flesh out some storylines and some characters. But you know, I'll just say kind of where we started, which is like the ending. It should have ended with Ellie being presumably shot by Abby. That's
And
it.
Well, then
wasted
what?
it.
And what a good line, yeah. We let you live, and you wasted it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great line,
Yep.
great delivery.
Yep.
Gunshot goes off. screen goes dark.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought that was where they were gonna end it. I was like,
I
oh,
kept looking at
okay.
the clock to be like, is it gonna be
Mm-hmm.
over? I don't know.
I feel like for me, I feel like I trust them in terms of changing things because like the scene in the or the whole story beat in the first season with like how they handled the brothers, right? And
Mm.
the whole story surrounding them with all with the I forgot what the group was called, but you know that whole like kind of paramilitary group they
Like
had.
Kansas City group.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
that whole thing.
the
That was great. I loved
Yep.
all of that. I loved what's that actress's name? The one
Is it
from
Melanie
Yellow
Linsky?
Jackets.
oh yeah.
Yes, amazing. She killed it. And she does not exist in the game, and I thought that was a perfect addition, right? And it like really enhanced
Mm-hmm.
the story. Like it really
Mm-hmm.
kind of gave stakes and gave a face to the threat they were trying to evade throughout that whole point. Because you're just kind of like, oh, what was it? The Fedra? Oh, Fedra people, and that's it. It was
Mm-hmm.
just, oh, you got to avoid the Fedra people, but we never really saw anyone. So there was like when you see her and you saw the dude who was the voice actor for
Perry. Yeah, for
yes,
Tommy.
you
Mm-hmm.
yeah you saw him and you were like, oh, those are the bad guys right now. That this is the face. It's not just a nameless acronym, you know. I think that was great, but in this, I feel like the thing we have to accept is this is just going to be a different story because they are making very deliberate decisions with this story that it's going to be hard to tell the same story. And that's fine. Like that's fine. Like with Last of Us season 1, like with like, the whole Ellie thing, right? And seeing kind of Ellie doing her stuff beat for beat. The whole cannibal thing was pretty much beat for beat. That whole cannibal
Yep.
whatever where she burnt down that lodge,
Mm-hmm.
that was pretty much exactly. And like I don't, it doesn't need to be exactly, they could have changed some things, but it kind of cemented like this is the trauma that she is dealing with, this is where it came from, this is a little bit more of a piece of why she is the way she is, right? Like I love action as much as the next guy, but like the action needs to mean something, right? Like again, I don't want her to be John Wick, I don't want her to just run around and kill everybody, right? Like I would like to see her, because having her kind of be this more like kind of this like I don't really want to hurt you, don't make me hurt you, oh I hurt you, sorry, like
Oh,
I do like that it's more human, but in the original story it's kind of she's almost turning into what she thinks Abby is. You know what I
right.
mean? Like having Abby show up and be like, I'm going to kill the person you care most about, and then just ice them, and then she just has to sit with that, and she's just stewing with that, and then when she goes out, she's kind of emulating the things that she saw, and like I feel like that part of it is the part I want to see more of. Like I want to see more of her going down that path of like you as a viewer being like, I don't really like you right now, like I'm not cool with what you're doing, like, which kind of gives Abby some room to like if this is where you would originally see Ellie and then throughout the season you're like, I don't know about that, ooh ouch, ooh, and it's kind of going down here, and then throughout the season you're getting more Abby of being like, oh, okay, I kind of see why you're doing that. When the story kind of settles out, you have two characters that throughout their entire story have shown you that they are not good or evil, because people aren't just good or evil. There's a lot of gray area, and they really explore that gray area to be like, hey, viewer or player who initially hated this character, here's a lot more context, and now you're going to have to reevaluate what you originally thought. Like that for me was the biggest like plot motivation for the story when I originally consumed it, like making me be like, oh shit, I have to reevaluate like what my initial thoughts on this character.
Well, and
You know,
I
it's
think they've been trying to get us there through, you know, of course, we got the revelation pretty early on that Joel, the man that Joel killed was Abby's father.
right.
But I think they kind of bookended that tonight with Ellie making that revelation to Dina. and Dina having the reaction she had, where you're seeing on the heels of Jesse being like, Ellie, you're fucking up and you are putting so many more people in danger. You're nothing you do is going to bring Joel back. Please stop. And then you have Dina being like, yeah, it's time to go home. Now that I know the full story here, I want to get out. You know, I think Dina in that moment is really intended to be a proxy for the viewer. Like, as a viewer, I think you're supposed to identify with Dina in that moment. I think that's how they're trying to start shifting the perspective to get the audience to go, hey, wait a second, maybe Ellie isn't the shit. I think it's just a question of like, do you think this season ever had people in that position to begin with? And I get that kind of, that's the question that I kind of hear coming up in this discussion is like, did we get like the character development and like payoff that we need for Ellie for that moment of the shift to have an impact?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because every episode that's, you know, we followed Ellie, it's the creators always have something interesting to say about her and her journey in the after, you know, in the making of, and on the official podcast too. There's a lot of interesting stuff that they have to say about Ellie's journey on any particular episode. But, and again, going into like what it overall amounts to, did they put the right weight on the right levers in order for this to net out as its solo? Because they made the choice to go all in on Ellie's solo story first 3 days. You know, do we have the right view of her, and are we ready to, you know, essentially spend some time with Abby?
And I don't think that spending this whole time with Ellie is necessarily a bad thing.
No.
I just feel like you said, there just wasn't enough time. Like, I feel like if we would have had like 2 more episodes, I feel like they could have, because a lot of these story beats felt kind of rushed, because it's like, we have 7 episodes, one of them's a flashback, so we're gonna need to just, you know, go.
I think they probably had to be careful though too, because you're killing off Joel in episode 2, then to not spend time with Ellie. If you're a viewer, you're gonna tune out real fast, right?
You're like,
And
whose show is this? Who's
right?
yeah.
And if all of a sudden in episode 3 you're spending a little too much time with Abby,
Right.
and not enough time with Ellie, I would think maybe that wouldn't necessarily sit well with viewers.
Yeah.
So they
I
probably
agree.
had to juggle that.
I agree.
I-
And like again, like 70-30. I'd be fine with that. 70
Yeah.
Ellie,
You know-
sprinkle in some Abby, you know, just so we see, we don't forget about her, you know.
Well, and that's the thing about this episode in particular that also is worth a call out. And I know, Chelsea, you shared one moment too, but there are these things that show us that the events that we know about from Abby's side of the story, and the events that we know about from what's been going on these 3 days that we didn't see this season, absolutely happened in this season, like during the time of this season, and will come up. Like certain shots, certain just things in the background, et cetera, like, oh, they're absolutely like, we are a go for this plot point. We are a go for this character's whole thing that happens to this character. We haven't even met yet. You know, these are all like confirmable, but what does it really amount to? What level of, you know, kind of suspension of, not even disbelief, like enjoyment, what's being put on an audience that hasn't played the game, which you say is much larger than the ones who have played the game, to just wait and trust that the show is going to be good, you know, next season, or tolerable without, you know, Ellie, or tolerable without Joel and Ellie. So it's like potentially, so it's like, what exactly is the audience that doesn't know what the story is being asked to kind of stomach and shoulder and look forward to moving ahead? And it's like, that just makes the way this episode ends feel gimmicky. It's like, oh wait, we're going
Yeah.
back in time, but that's not new for the show either. So it's like,
I just have so many questions, like
Yeah,
going back to earlier.
It gave me the vibe of like Abby's about to shoot Ellie, and it's like record scratch. I bet you're wondering how I got here. Let me tell you. It's like day one Seattle. Next
Giraffes.
season of Last of Us.
Yeah, or earlier. Yeah.
Which I mean, I like that as a story, like a story mechanic. I like that. I like going back and like
too.
recontextualizing things. But having that be the season finale, like having that be the last thing you see to be like, we're gonna do it again, guys, and I'm like, it should have been gunshot, cut to black, credits.
Yep.
That's it. That should have been it. You know,
Because
like-
that's your complete circle. That's the kind of action and reaction, essentially,
yep.
It's
of the season.
the vicious cycle of vengeance and
Yes.
revenge that has been, as you're saying, Eric, sort of this major theme throughout the course of the season. And for me, yeah, like I want to know where are the infected, what's going on with this airborne version of the fungus, who are the Seraphites, why do they matter, what's Isaac up to, like who is this guy? I mean, we're introduced to him earlier on in the season. We don't get a whole lot of context to him, but clearly he wants Abby to be his successor of sorts.
That was interesting.
You know, like I got a lot. Are we still working towards getting a cure here? Like, what's the deal? I'm assuming Ellie somehow, some way, is making her way into season 3.
Well, Micah, you know, the answer to all of that is tune in next season on Last
The
of
answer
Us
to all of that,
season 3.
Micah, is for $59.99. You too can own The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah. I would say play the game unless you just want to.
Don't suffer.
For 2
Play the
years.
game. It's awesome.
Yeah, just
Like-
Yeah, the game is fantastic.
Right. The
Um,
only
and
counterpoint-
that's not a dog. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. The only counterpoint I want to give to the kind of backlash that we overall seem to have against the very end of this episode.
So sorry, Chelsea.
It's analysis. It's not backlash.
No, I'm not saying that I love it, but like from a marketing standpoint, wouldn't you want the audience to know 2 years ahead of time that what's coming next is going to be Abby rather than springing it on them when you've already got the season made?
Yeah.
Yes, I
probably.
agree with that. But
Yeah,
I
Or
would
did they
have
already
wanted.
shoot?
That's why.
Yeah.
No,
Oh
well,
yeah.
no,
They
I assume not.
they've been shooting some things because they shot some things simultaneously. So some things are kind of keeping in the pipe, and then but honestly, at that point, just make it an after credit thing. Just make it a show some credits and then
Abby
show.
return.
Yeah, kind of.
That gives it a little bit of a
because-
gives it more of a Marvel movie thing, but also
well, also
Yeah,
it's just
but every
it
movie's doing that now.
yes,
so.
yeah, Sinners did it, which even see Sinners is great.
now
But-
I gotta see the after
See,
credits thing.
it's but it's just it feel like marketing wise, I completely agree with you, Chelsea. It makes perfect sense. You don't want to just be like surprise Abby because people be like what the hell. But I feel like taking away from that beautiful we let you live and you waste it blam, like that was
It's
so
one of the best lines
good.
in the game.
Yeah, like, that was just peak, and I was like, this is Abby. Like this right here is what I've been waiting the whole season for, and then to be like, boom, cool, yeah, all right. By the way, you see this football stadium, pretty rad, huh? Huh? You want to see more? Well, tune in next time. And I'm like, okay, like I don't know, like I and like she delivered that line perfectly. Like she like her. Did you see her face? Like she was
nailed it.
pissed. Yeah, like it was, and like you can see, like she did so much acting just with her face. Like the different expressions she makes as she like get up and she sees Ellie and she's like, oh, like you can see her kind of like processing what's
Who
happening.
did she think it was? Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then she's like,
There's
"We
all
let
these
you
cool
live."
questions you love to ask.
Right? It's like, we let you live and you waste it. And it's like, man, that was great. That was great.
The sh- How does the show, in the show's language, get you to care? Mm-hmm. Is there
Yeah.
an interesting exploration? I cared about Jesse in this episode a lot.
Past tense. Past
Well, I
tense.
care.
R.I.P.
currently about Jesse past tense. Yeah, well, and
Yeah.
look, these things are gonna happen. You get close to a character who's
Mm-hmm.
off, whatever. But no, they managed to do some really interesting things. I think, as a prelude to our overall season discussion, I think there are things that did work this season, and I think there are some things that were really interesting this season that I like that they brought into this world. So, and I'll rewatch this finale too, and I'm sure I'll pick up on even more things. Um, but yeah, here's the problem I think too is from our standpoint as viewers, we know, like Ellie may or may not realize she's trapped in a cycle of viciousness. We know she's trapped in a cycle of viciousness, and just like in the game, that's really hard to watch. It's even harder to play through, but it's really hard to watch. And so, how do you combat or balance watching your character, especially a character you love, maybe a character that you watch the show for, continue to make bad choices, or have it like continually feel like even those choices are being taken from her and have a bad result? It's painful to watch. There's a moral, there's a morality kind of in there that is like a good tale to learn, but it does ultimately need a lot of craftsmanship to like be like, this is what you should be thinking as the audience right now. And some of these big moments where maybe like with Nora or with Dina at certain points, the weight hasn't been, that wasn't where the episodes ended, like at each one of those. So plenty of those episodes did end on those big moments, but like there were other character moments where it's like they could have maybe dial that back a little bit.
Yeah, and I feel like to your point about watching a character make bad decisions or just suffer, right? Because she is suffering. Like, whereas, like, even though she's making bad decisions, like she's making bad decisions because she's suffering. She's not just like a 1980s villain, right? She's not Skeletor, right? Like she is hurting, and that's why she's doing this. But I feel like usually the padding for that, and you can see it in shows like Breaking Bad, other shows that have characters making bad decisions, but they put so many other characters in there that you kind of get a break. You're like, ooh, that was hard to watch. Let me see what Jesse's doing. Not Jesse from Last of Us, Jesse from Breaking Bad, but like you kind of get,
Now I want to crossover both Jesse's from both universes,
right? And Joe Smith
What's up,
or
bitch?
Joe Miller, Joe Miller.
Yeah, I was
Joe
gonna say,
Miller,
Jesse
yeah.
doesn't
Joe Miller.
say Jesse in The Last of Us doesn't say bitch nearly
Right.
enough.
But yeah, like and I feel like even like this episode, I even though I have a lot to say, I did like this episode because we did get to see, Dina have a little bit more of a role in being like, I'm not cool with this, right? Like having a very, line in the sand, like, time to go home, Tommy showing back up, getting to see, the various people again. Like we got to see Isaac, we got to see Park. Is that her name? The
I
Lieutenant
believe so.
Park.
Yeah.
We got to see her. Like seeing all these characters and kind of giving us a break from Ellie's crash out is kind of how you get around that, because you're right, getting a close up on a character you care about just crash and burn for an hour is hard. That's really hard. So like for me, the episodes where it was just Ellie and Dina was there too, but when it was just Ellie and you're seeing her really hurting, that was hard. It was hard to watch, and like if the whole season was like that, that'd be really tough. But I like that at least in this episode you got to see various characters, and not just like people from Jackson, just people from the WLF, right? Like those random Seraphites in the woods on the beach randomly.
The whole thing,
like
it does Abby so much credit to have Isaac be like, "Where is she? I wanted her, as my successor." Like, no, that's actually wild to get that kind of a scene in here because we don't know who Abby is, but that it heartened me to see it because it's like it really gives Abby even more to do next season. I think to really kind of earn that kind of compliment. I'm just sad it can't be this season too.
Yes, I agree. Because a lot of people are probably like, why? Why does he want her to be the...
What is their relationship like? How
Yeah,
did it
like-
get formed? Because we've seen Isaac a
Exactly.
bunch. We've not seen him with Abby.
So it's like we know some of the others, but it's like we don't know everything, but we do know we have more context. But like if I was just a random viewer, I'd be like, why is she a big deal? Like, did everybody want to kill Joel? Like, did everybody in the WLF want to kill Joel? Like, what like I
Yeah, they played what he did on the Jumbotron, and everyone's
Right.
real pissed about it.
right, everybody's real mad about it. Yeah, like everybody's dad worked at that hospital.
Well, I mean, you could just expand it to say like everyone's real pissed that there's not a cure.
Yeah.
Because didn't Druckmann, speaking of cures, didn't Druckmann just confirm
Mm-hmm.
that they would have made a cure?
Confirm, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
On the
listen,
podcast?
The game.
I don't
Yeah,
buy
he-
it.
It
but-
was on a different podcast. It was on a like a PlayStation podcast, and
I missed this.
Yeah, I saw the
he
news story.
yeah, it was and basically he's like, is the writing not airtight? Sure, but there are, giant mushroom monsters that are attacking people, so
Yeah.
but he's like, it was my intention to be like, yes, there could have been a cure made, right? Like, it wasn't just like it would have failed, right? But like, again, we can't know that, and if we can know that's the author's intention, right, and that's cool. And I feel like it does add more weight to all of this, because
Yeah.
it's like, it's not just some dude who's like, I could give this a crack at it. Like, if he was saying that in an alternate timeline the cure was made, and that was a real thing that could have happened, then yeah, it frames a lot of this a lot differently, because
The question I have with
Yeah.
that though, as an implication, is like, okay, say they did make a cure, say it worked. How do you disseminate it between warring factions? You would think the word cure would cause everybody to lay down their arms. Life's not like that,
No,
right?
it would
So, in fact, if you have a messenger who's running with the cure or whatever, somebody's going to shoot him from a mile away because like he's running toward my community. It's like not going to
well,
work.
I mean,
So
it would probably just be for the Fireflies. They would probably just, if you want the cure, you have to join the Fireflies. Like, historically, that's
that makes
how
a lot
not
of
not
sense.
not cure, but just like resources like that are very valuable. It would be like, you have to join us, because I don't see them being like, hey, you raiders that attacked us last week, you want a cure? You want to?
Well, 'cause
No.
yeah.
You
Because
You
the
need a cure,
Fireflies
you
had a
need a
good
cure.
name going for them. They were the
Yeah.
ones that were like the resistance of Fedra.
Yeah.
More
And like,
kind of
and honestly,
organized.
that's a really big sell. Like, being like, hey, if you join us, you can join our numbers, join our ranks. You have to do missions for us and stuff, but we got a cure cooking. You could be cured. You could just live a normal life after all of this. Like, that's a lot of people would probably take that. Of course, it wouldn't be super peaceful. Somebody would attack somebody. There'd be another Joel, right? There'd probably be some other Joel that does something similar to do whatever they need to do. But like, it does add weight, right? Because it's like, the world could have been different. It may not have been better, but it would have been different from what is the current status quo of the world.
It's like, so what if The Last of Us as a show has introduced us to the two worst characters in this world? You get Joel, who does this unforgivable thing, right? And then Ellie, who continually chooses violence over, doesn't mean to, but, ultimately goes down that path. And it's like, what do we gravitate to? What stories do we want out of this universe? And will season 3 deliver on them? And there is really good stuff coming still.
Yeah.
I believe
You
it.
know, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I
so
mean,
it's like,
There is.
Like, I know we haven't been super easy on this episode, and I mean, all of that is to say that we all just really care about this story, and we know there's good stuff to come.
Well, you guys do.
but-
I don't.
I mean, we criticize, listen,
Fair,
we criticize
fair.
because we care.
I'm trusting
Criticize
in all of
because
you.
we care. Yeah, no, Micah, definitely be here next season. Y'all watching at home, Abby is an incredible character, and her story is worth it. So, whenever we get season 3, no idea when that's gonna be. It'll be worth
maybe
it.
Neil can reveal that on one of his PlayStation
Right.
podcasts
Yeah,
this
maybe.
week.
Right.
That'd be great.
But did anyone else have any final thoughts we want to share as part of our reaction tonight?
I'll just say I really enjoyed the shift in this season, though, because so much of season 1 was about this existential threat that existed in the infected, and yet so much of season 2 was about the human dynamic and the fighting that, I remember I also mentioned this to Eric as I was watching throughout the season. I said, at least the humans have the ability to consciously make decisions, right? They can choose not to fight each other. Whereas the infected, seemingly, as far as we know right now, at least as far as I know, don't have that ability to make that decision, right? They're just wired to go after somebody else. So I liked how there was that shift in perspective and dynamic in this particular season. So
Yeah, the real monsters are
that's what I'm going at. Are the humans?
Yeah.
Yes.
Always are, always will be.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Speaking of
that's-
monsters, I really liked the in the bookstore where they were supposed to meet Tommy. We had the monster at the end of this book, that Sesame Street Grover book. Which, if you guys don't know, listeners out there, whoever, Grover is the main character of this book, and he's terrified that the title of the book said that there's going to be a monster at the end, and so the whole book he's trying to get you to not keep reading because he doesn't want to see the monster, only for you to reach the end of the book and you realize that Grover is the monster at the end of the book.
Did you really just spoil that book, that children's
Spoilers.
book for all of us?
Oh.
The one that came out in 1971,
My,
yes.
my little cousin
Yeah.
is never going to recover.
Man.
But like, obviously that's very sweet. But to parallel it with Ellie's journey here, like she's
Yeah.
after Abby as like the monster in her mind, only for at the end of this episode for her to have just killed this pregnant person.
Yep.
When she has a pregnant person at home waiting for her, and for her to realize that she's the monster, it's just A plus, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that they did that because like the argument that she had with Jesse where she's like, oh yeah, well, we just watched somebody die or whatever. And it's like, okay, let's play this out. We get out there, people, we all die. No one goes home. What then? And to have that immediately be like, and you just killed a pregnant lady. And you're like, and like poor Ellie's like, oh my God, like her world is rocked, which I do enjoy seeing her, especially in that theater, again, on the stage, you see her be like, oh my God, like she's just sitting there like, oh my God. And I'm like, I like this. I do like her grappling with this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree, and we can take that all back to a point that Chelsea brought up earlier, which is just this version of Ellie, I think, is being portrayed more as an Ellie that is, I think, actively trying in the way that she knows how to not be violent, but unfortunately, violence is one of the only things she knows. So she keeps coming back to it, and it's almost like not that she's choosing it, but that it's inescapable. So it'll be.
I do think
interesting
that
to
makes
see.
show Ellie more sympathetic.
Yes, I think they have to. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if they're giving us a whole season of her before we get the exposition on Abby, they need to make her more human, you know, because the cold monster Ellie, right, is only works if you are comparing her to an Abby that they are consistently putting in a more nuanced light, right? Because if it's just a whole season of Ellie being a like a just completely cold, then yeah, you're gonna be like, what? Why would I care about this guy? Like, what's going on, right? Like, why would I care? But like, yeah, like I do like that they had points in there, like of her being mournful, you know, and you know her having to grapple with things. I just wish we would have got more Abby with a lot of that. That's it. I
It's
just
interesting in seeing how much Ellie is in next season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will. be.
But I think too there's a way to continue Ellie's story while still giving us all the Abby stuff we missed.
yes, I agree.
Assuming
That's
she's
actually
still alive.
yes, exactly
well,
right.
it'll be going.
We have one of
back
those
to
episodes where it's like
cover-
she's in a coma
yeah.
from the brain injury, and then she dreams a million years, and she lives in like a mind prison, and then we get.
Have
those
you ever
scenes
seen
and-
Have you ever seen Wizard of Oz? I'm just kidding.
Oh
That's
yeah,
season
Well, Eric said that Ellie was going to be in season of 3, so matter of factly, with so much confidence.
well for
that,
like
you
the
know.
first 5 minutes at least, right?
okay.
Now I'm trying to like.
Well,
walk it
did
back.
Abby make the mistake of not thinking there was somebody else there? We know Dina's there. Does she come to? I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
who
and-
fired the gun?
Yeah.
I feel like that is a very good question of how much do we think of Ellie are we going to get next season? Like, do you think it's going to be like this season where it's mostly Abby and Ellie just kind of pops in and then leaves, or you know?
I mean,
The show needs Bella Ramsey. I'm sorry. Like,
yeah.
if it wants to I mean, I don't know if there's a season 4 that's even possible, but
I think I
mean,
saw
there's
some
a-
kind of news story recently. Sorry, Laura.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Where I think Craig Mazin was saying that he doesn't know how they can tell the rest of the story in season 3.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we'll see. Because I mean,
Well,
That
geez,
doesn't.
aside,
That doesn't.
the-
Yeah,
the
that doesn't
show
put me at
doesn't end-
ease.
what a
the
pickle.
game doesn't end in Seattle.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
No, the game.
I
The
mean,
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seattle's like the halfway point. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It feels that
Yeah.
way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Both
So.
versions
Uh huh.
of their Seattle.
Uh huh. So.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, so that was the thing. I mean, honestly, my initial thought was I was thinking we were going to be hitting around the same halfway point-ish, and yeah, we're not there. But
Yeah.
you know, I'm still going to be here for the next
Oh, me
season.
too.
Oh, yeah.
Again, every
Oh, yeah.
I'm
episode
excited
is
for it.
greatly
Mhm.
crafted.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I think my kind of closing perspective on this season and our discussion we've had tonight is that eventually we will have the rest of the story, whether that's in season 3 by itself or whether it's in seasons 3 or 4, whatever. We will have the whole story. And while we have maybe some growing pains here in season 2 because we don't have the rest yet, when we have everything, I think we might look at season 2 differently. Maybe there will be some sort of cool watching order where you can watch everything chronologically or whatever.
That would be
like,
cool.
back and forth between seasons. That would be cool. And so right now we don't know how they're going to wrap everything up, what they're going to do next. We don't know. But I still have that hope and that faith in the creative team that like I really liked season 2. Sure, there were maybe some questions about like what they were going to include or what they're not going to include and how we're going to move forward with that. But again, we will have everything eventually. And I think that they're doing the things they're doing for a reason. And I have hope that it'll be a better product by the end. It's just if we can have the patience to get there.
Yeah. Well, I'll be
Yeah.
kind of trying to stick to the news, figure out when that season is starting filming. I'll show up on the streets and be like, "Do a good job, guys." I mean, I think there's still. I'm looking forward to listening to the podcast on this episode. I think there's just a real desire. Like Laura said, this comes from a place of love, loving the story, loving the story
Totally.
we got, and the one that we're getting, and the one that we will get. So.
Agree. I do want to give a shout out to Em, who has been here with us for this entire stream.
Em is
Thank you so
crushing
much,
it.
Em. I know. Em shared this season was like the 100, and the 100 did it better, even if the last season was a letdown. I'll be honest, I haven't seen the 100. I'm not
No.
sure if anyone here has, but looking at it, it's a sci-fi drama that follows survivors from a space station who return to Earth after a nuclear apocalypse. So, like post-apocalyptic vibes. So yeah, that's something else we can maybe check out if we're looking for another like sci-fi apocalyptic story to keep us entertained between now and whenever we get season 3. So thank you so much to Em for your comment, but also just want to give a shout out to Kirsten from Australia who joined us tonight. Thank you for joining us. To me, we're sitting here and it's like midnight for some of us, but you're on the other side of the planet, so it's probably morning for you. But yeah, really appreciate everyone tuning in tonight.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about wraps us up for initial thoughts and reactions to The Last of Us Season 2's finale. But as Eric plugged, later on this week, we will be doing a full Season 2 recap where we're really going to dive in and do the nitty-gritty analysis of the full season, what we think went well, what we think could have been better, and ultimately where we think this story is going in season 3. So definitely be sure to check that out this coming Friday. But until then, you should definitely be sure to check out our various socials. We are What the Hype Podcast on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, and Instagram. We are What the Hype Show on Twitter. And we are covering so many different fandoms in the last few weeks, we've covered The Last of Us, White Lotus. We've done a feedback episode. We covered season 5 of You. We're just doing everything.
Gilmore
right now.
Girls.
Gil, thank you for throwing that out. Gilmore Girls. Pam and I also did a reaction to the Bridgerton season 4 first look. So we're just all over the place. You can get audio only versions of our show wherever you listen to podcasts. We are What the Hype. You can also find links to our various socials and everywhere that you can download our show over at whatthehypepodcast.com. But thank you so much for tuning in with us tonight. And Eric, Chelsea, Mark, and Micah, thank you so much for joining. I've so enjoyed hanging out with y'all this season.
This has been a really
And-
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm so excited for us to do this again next season, and for other shows that I know we're all going to be following between now and then. So this isn't the last of our reaction episodes. I think
I
This
see what you
isn't the
did there.
last you'll be hearing
I
of
see
us.
what you did there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done, Draco.
Love it. All right, y'all. Well, have a great night. And panel, again, thank you so much for being on. I know it's getting pretty late, and some of us got to get to bed. So we will leave it with that. But we will see you on our full episode recap coming this Friday. Bye,
Thank you.
y'all.
Bye.
I
Night.
All righty.
Eric, peace
Did
out.
Eric leave?
Oh.